The first person to speak in a court of law always seems right until is subjected to strict cross-examination. Proverbs 18:17. That is the Bible. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of The Nationalist. Today, we have witnessed a fiery oral submissions from IEBC's and Ruto's counsel. The pushback to discredit petitioner's case made evidence and affidavits that were erstwhile strong suddenly looked weak and rather lame in the eyes of the ordinary Kenyans. However, it requires also some technical bit to understand the finer details of what those evidence and the attack really mean. The blows were heavy indeed, but in that heavy blow, can we be able to identify some of the weaknesses? Can we also be able to isolate the strength, removing facts from fiction, the strong point from the weak points? This episode, we're going to discuss what Ruto team and IEBC team got right and wrong. That is our topic for today. Before we do that, however, I ask you, do kindly subscribe and click that notification bell so that you're notified whenever we post this kind of really educative videos. We do summary of the proceedings in court so that everybody else, Kenyans, can be able to understand what is going on. I'll give you a moment as I take water at least. So, what did they really get right? Straight to number one. IEBC lawyers' interpretation of Article 138(3)(c). I find that to be really compelling if you compare to what Azimio was propounding before court. I would just read that for your understanding so that we're on the same page. It provides, after counting the votes in the polling station, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the results. So what they're arguing essentially is tallying happens at the polling station in the first instance. That is where the first instant verification and tallying of results happens. And in that polling station, there is an IEBC. So the officers of the IEBC constitute the IEBC, so that the IEBC is the commission and the secretariat plus the employees. So the presiding officer in a particular polling station while counting those votes and thereafter entering the numbers in the Form 34As and asking party agents to also confirm. That is verification. Then the second stage of verification is at the constituency tallying center, where now the returning officer of that particular constituency again does the same. He again tallies, which is now the aggregation, verifies those results, tallies them, and then enters them into Form 34B. So in that particular polling station, again, the RO, in conducting that act as an agent of IEBC, then they are meeting the dictates of Article 138C. Independent, I need to be very keen on it, that it is the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Then the third tier of that is now, it ends up now at the National Tallying Center, where now they again do the same. It's a process that is continuous. But this is how now they are putting it. In simple words, that had the Constitution intended the 7 commissioners to be the ones to conduct this role exclusively, then the article itself now would read as follows. After counting the votes in the polling station, commissioners of the Independent and Electoral and Boundaries Commission. But that is not what he's saying. Because Independent and Electoral and Boundaries Commission constitute the commission and the secretariat. So if you adopt that argument, then the argument by Council Nyamodi yesterday that the CEO was also involved in that process could easily be answered, because then he is part of the commission. And the problematic bit of Azimio's argument then comes in this, which again Nyang'aya highlights quite critically in his own affidavit, and they used that as an argument that it would be practically impossible to have the commissioners verify over 40,000 results coming from the polling stations. And therefore the commission operates, or the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, operates through its agents. So IEBC, through its agents, is supposed to verify and note the 7 commissioners. Because had the Constitution intended it to be the 7 commissioners, it should have stated so clearly that counting the votes in the polling station, commissioners of independent. But that is not what is there. So I find that argument quite compelling. And again, the fact that Justice Nyang'aya, Commissioner, also said that it would be practically impossible to just say that it is them that are supposed to tally and verify. That is a constitutional argument. So each party may push here and there, but without going into what the facts are, just looking at that interpretation, I do find that to be a very strong point on their side. Then number 2, asking also the court to consider asking what happened within the 1 hour before the 4 commissioners bolted, when in fact Madam Cherera herself conceded that the elections was conducted transparently, but until that point. So what made this thing now to suddenly become opaque? At what point? Was this something that could be resolved? That question has been raised by the judge, but again, the fact that they're asking this question, that the court should really have to consider that, is very, very critical. Number 3, attacking the logs. That is one aspect again where they got right. Advocate Gumbo attacked the logs by Justice Nyang'aya, Commissioner, essentially making the affidavit by Commissioner Nyang'aya lose a bit of evidentiary value, if I must say, because when you speak about people accessing and then you attach logs, and the logs that you've attached do not show or do not demonstrate that people actually access, it does not show, the logs do not show at all that people accessed. So that really is a very, very strong point on their part, because then it makes that affidavit lose its probative value to court. Then number 4, asserting that Supreme Court does not have power to remove Chebukati from office. That was again critical, because that is one of the prayers by Azimio. They want Chebukati, that if at all a runoff is to be conducted, then he should not be out of office. There is in the Constitution ways of removing from office, and again you see it raises a point. At what point, when these things were happening, why couldn't you raise these issues at the right time and also seek to remove him through the constitutionally provided framework? So that did not happen. So why ask the court to do that for you? And then what I consider to be the most damage to Azimio case, that is now number 5 and the last one, was done by Counsel Katwa Kigen, and he did so slowly but surely and with tremendous precision. The way in which he destroyed the evidence of Justice Nyang'aya and that of Odinga, the affidavit by Odinga, and that of Benson Wesonga was commendable, because essentially he was saying this Odinga, for instance, was not an agent, and he could not disclose where he got the forms. and therefore is not the originator. I cannot say it was given by a third party. So whatever he's saying before court essentially is hearsay. In fact, it describes Benson Wesonga as in a fourth tier hearsay. That's very dangerous. Fourth tier hearsay. Hearsay essentially is, in basic terms, I was told, somebody said this. So when Benson Wesonga was analyzing, or whatever is analyzed before court, came from a party who was not the originator, and then you proceed to analyze them, then you are only you are continuing that set of hearsay. And then now it also came out clear that some of these documents attached to the affidavits, or some of them were actually falsified. So those are really, really strong points on their side, the way in which they attack that evidence. So what then did they get wrong? I only picked two of what they got wrong, and these two does not really mean that they've actually now eventually going to win the case. No, they'll have to assess that evidence, because the other side is also will also now counter the right of response to these strong submissions by them. So straight to number one, Senior Ngatia arguing that the Supreme Court should not nullify results because Honorable Raila Odinga will probably avoid a repeat election. That's really an emotional argument, and it lacks legal basis. So it can still be nullified, and even if Raila decides to run for that repeat election, it is his right. Ruto can run alone with others, and then the elephant in the room is the numbers on the voter turnout. I don't think they got this right. I think if you look at what was presented, and this was their evidence, let me just read this for you. That on 9th August, according to voters identified from Kimskit, were about 12,065,803 that constitute about 56% of the voter turnout. The 9th August, about 20:45 hours, that is about saa mbili usiku, there were about 13,731,215, which now translated to 63.6 of the total registered voters. And now, interestingly, on 10th August at 14:40 hours, people were still voting, essentially. That is what I find quite curious, that the number now jumped to 14,164,561. Where is that number coming from? Then again, on 10th August, all Kimskit now on 10th August, it now came to 14,239,862. So this is curious, because Kimskit works this way. When you place your thumb to vote, then it automatically it takes your it records, and then that information is sent to IEBC center, so that it notifies this person has voted, this person has voted. But voting closed on 9th. How then did over 500, if you do the calculations, then over 500 people voted on 10th of August. Over 500,000 people voted on 10th of August. That evidence then supports what Mr. Okia, Senator for Busia, presented to court, that there were over 500,000 people who voted on 10th of August after voting had closed. So that is very critical. I'm saying so because the basis of the argument is elections are about numbers, and numbers must be considered. Therefore, if you're going to look at numbers, the first point of consideration is the voter turnout, and at what point did that voting stop, and why then did other 500,000 continued to vote through Kimskate. When voting really had closed at 5 and on 9th of August. So that is all for today. I just want to remind you once again, kindly share this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a like. We would really also wish that you leave a comment so that we know what you think of our videos. Thank you.